My initial purpose here is to be quite clear that we're experiencing a very hot day in a sequence of warm days, days that are impacting on our community. Some of the messages that we tried to get through over the last few days are important ones for the community. Keeping themselves hydrated, ensuring that we have a very clear approach to keeping out of the heat, ensuring that your clothing is right if you're in the heat, and also seeking advice and assistance if you need it. Certainly I've directed people to the Better Health channel as a first line of information, and there is significant information there that will assist people and enable people to make decisions about how they manage the heat from their own perspective. That is the first line of response for people with respect to managing the heat. Some have been calling Nurse on Call, and there's certainly interest from Nurse on Call and the ability to obtain information from a Nurse on Call or to be directed to some assistance if that is appropriate. And obviously then some people who are affected by the heat will be calling 000 as appropriate. So in the case of emergencies, they will no doubt call 000. Rosemary Lester in a moment will outline the addition of a number of heat health alerts for regions in Gippsland that are in operation now. So those heat health alerts meet the criteria, and they are by way of warning to the community and putting in place the appropriate steps. Ambulance Victoria, and Paul Holman will say more about this, has got sufficient resources in place to deal with this and is actually taking prudent steps to make sure that resources are in place. At the same time, Craig Lapsley will say some more in a moment about a number of these other key points. But the messages are clear for the community. It is a very hot period. It is a period where those that are older and vulnerable are at risk. People need to remain hydrated. They need to remain indoors if they can. Seek the options of going to public spaces that are air conditioned. A number of people will spend more time in our big public shopping centres or in public libraries, finding cool where they're much more comfortable. Others will remain at home, and in those cases there are steps they can take at home with blinds and with the capacity to use wet towels and some of the advice that is outlined on the Better Health channel information source or on Seniors Online. And I also reinforce the comments of the Seniors Commissioner yesterday. For those who have a vulnerable person or a senior next door who may need assistance, check on them. Ask the question, knock on their door, seek information as to whether there's anything in addition that they may need. But we are experiencing a very hot period. It is having an impact on people, and we certainly want the right steps in place. So I'm going to ask Rosemary Lester to outline the heat health alerts that have been put in place.
So as the Minister said, we have issued 2 additional heat health alerts today. One is for the Western South Gippsland district, which is now, based on the revised forecasts from the Bureau, has now tipped over our threshold to meet the criteria for a heat health alert. So today we now have 8 of the 9 districts meeting the criteria for a heat health alert. And of course we know that the whole of Victoria is hot. For Friday, we now have added the Central District, which is the Melbourne district, now meets the criteria for a heat health alert on Friday. So the Melbourne district is meeting the criteria from Tuesday right through to Friday. We do want to emphasise to the community that this is a serious public health issue. We know that there are serious consequences from extreme heat, and that can be increased hospitalisations and, unfortunately, increased deaths. We know that there are some in the community who are more vulnerable to the effects of extreme heat than others. And the Minister has mentioned some of those. That's the elderly, and please do take a moment to check on our elderly friends and neighbours. People who with chronic medical conditions such as heart disease, kidney disease, diabetes, pregnant women and young children and babies. And these people are most susceptible because their bodies are unable to regulate the temperature as well as healthy adults can. The Minister has given you most of the key messages for how to stay healthy in the heat, but we would just emphasise again, if you can't get to an air-conditioned place, if your home is not air-conditioned and you can't get safely to an air-conditioned shopping centre or library or designated municipal community centre, then stay inside, close your curtains and blinds from early in the morning to block out the sun, and make sure you have a fan, a cool face washer, and you can put your feet in cool water to make sure you cool yourself down. Drink plenty of water throughout the day, even if you don't feel thirsty, to make sure you stay hydrated, because that's a very important message. Keep drinking water. If your doctor normally limits the amount of water that you drink, then just check with him or her as to how you should moderate your intake throughout this hot weather. So we do want to reiterate to the community that this is a serious public health issue, and we just want to emphasise that if people follow some of these, relatively simple things, that we can minimise the health impact on the community. And of course, as you'll hear in a moment, as well as looking after your own health, always keep an eye and an ear out for messages from our emergency services authorities, because of course, as well as looking after ourselves in the heat, it's very important that people are aware of bushfire safety and follow the instructions given by the emergency services personnel. Thank you.
Just following on from that, we're already seeing the effects of heat in terms of the emergency response. For example, yesterday we had 86 direct heat-related cases, and unfortunately 18 cardiac arrests. That's already, in the cardiac arrest patient, that's already 40% more than we would do on a normal day. So the key message to the community here is we need to respect this heat. This is not an ordinary hot day, this is an extreme event, and we as a community need to engage with the conditions and adjust our lifestyle accordingly. Unfortunately, again today, we're still having children left in cars, certainly down on yesterday, so hopefully that message is getting out there. But we had two young children left in a vehicle today, and they were only for 10 minutes. By the time paramedics got them, they were already distressed. So that was 10 minutes. So I would urge the community, think about that very carefully. It really is important. We know it's an inconvenience moving the kids in and out of cars, even for a short time, but in these conditions, you really do need to take this seriously. So respect the heat. We can look after ourselves. All the key messages are out there in terms of hydration, looking after the elderly, looking after the community. But unfortunately, people are not adjusting their lifestyle. Yesterday, we saw a number of cases of people collapsing on bowling rinks, on golf courses, or out running. So this is probably a few days to have a bit of a rest, adjust your lifestyle, make sure that you are treating this heat with respect. I can't emphasise that enough. If you don't, you will get into trouble, and you really need to look after yourself, your family, and the general community. This is a time for us to pull together and to make sure that what we want to do as a community is to survive this extreme event and come through on the other side.
Obviously today is a day again, second day of a 4-day run of excessive heat. And obviously the messaging is all about people's health, but we also need to remember the fire danger that exists. Total fire bans across the state today, again tomorrow, Thursday, and we'll continue total fire bans for the entire state on Friday. So that's information that people need to be attuned to wherever they are in Victoria. From that, we've got overnight lightning moved into the northwestern part of the state and central Victoria that saw 256 new fires start. Out of those, 15 fires are still listed as going and being worked on by aircraft and crews on the ground. And you must say well done to the fire crews to be out there in this temperature to work in those conditions is something that every Victorian should say thank you to not only our volunteer firefighters but our career firefighters that are with them. That tells us though that fire's relevant in the landscape and certainly will be the peak day on Friday when the winds come into Victoria, and we'll see the winds increase, which means the fire danger increases and the potential of fire to become intense and also out of control very quickly. So we say to every Victorian, make sure that you're in a position that you've got the information you need to understand about fires. You need to have a plan. We've said it and we'll say it again, a plan is critical for everyone that's in a high fire danger area, those that are travelling in Victoria and those that are holidaying in Victoria. Critical issue. Remember, children are on school holidays. So if you're in the position where you're working and children at home, make sure there's a plan around your children, particularly on Friday. And the other thing that's very important is where to get information. Listen to the radio, tune into TV, visit the website, Fire Ready app, all places to get information, or ring the Victorian Bushfire information line. Information is critical. Make sure you know where to go and get that information. This afternoon the Kangaroo Ground Fire is contained. However, there is the potential when the wind change moves through that area this afternoon that it could jump containment lines. There are strategies being put in place by the incident control team that for the community of Panton Hills will be warned this afternoon of that potential, and also the fact that people will see the status potentially change. So that's a key issue in Victoria this afternoon of a fire that's contained, and we'd hope to think it remains contained but has the potential, the real potential that that fire could change its status and therefore offer potential risk to the Panton Hills community. And it's interesting to note that yesterday we had 2.3 million people come and visit the websites for information, which we say is a great thing, that people are accessing our information, and I just encourage people to continue to do that, not only about fire but about health.